Welcome everybody to the call. Momentum Monday, goals and actuals, accountability. We just listened to Imagine Dragons, whatever it takes. Are you doing whatever it takes? Think about that. What does your morning routine look like? Are you getting fired up? Are you rolling out of bed, throwing a little water in your face, getting your coffee, maybe watching TV? Or are you getting excited, getting stuff done and ready to rock and roll? It just all depends on everyone's morning routine. My morning routine starts with this morning. I was up at just before 4 o'clock this morning. I don't recommend it to anyone, but I can tell you this. I'm fired up. I'm so excited. I should slow down on the coffee. No, all joking aside, I drink decaf, so that's not my problem. My point is, are you fired up? Are you doing whatever it takes to make things happen? I wore this shirt today just because I want to be a reminder. Are we getting listings? Are we taking the listings that we know we need to take? Are we doing the activities that we know we should be doing? Are we tracking and measuring our activities? Because if we don't know where we need help. Richard, I love your Tony Robbins, The Rise. That's awesome. Did you attend that? Put it in the chat box. Let's get started though, guys. Let's get started with our goals and actuals. And I'm going to go ahead and let everybody, looks like everybody's coming in. We've got a good group of folks. I'm going to minimize the music, but what I want to do about this before I drop this screen, put your playlist together. Here's mine. I love that song, Whatever It Takes by the Imagine Dragons. It gets me so pumped up. Thunder, Unstoppable, Hall of Fame, High Hopes. This is my playlist when I want to get fired up. Not everybody has that same thing going on, but I can tell you what, try it. Get fired up, get plugged in, get pumped. So anyway, enough of that. I'm glad everyone's on the call. I want to go right into it. Bottom line, first things first. This is what pops up on my screen every Monday morning. Momentum Monday, goals and actuals. It's an actual reminder, comes out 15 minutes before this call, and it reminds me that we have an appointment. I do this for everything in my life, from going to bed to waking up and everything in between. I have everything in my calendar as an appointment. Prospecting is no different. My training, my coaching, my mentoring, my listing appointments, it's all in my calendar, and reminders come to me. I literally get a reminder that says 15 minutes from now, you'll need to go to bed. Best place, home. Those are the kind of reminders we sometimes need. It was a big playoff weekend. Everybody was having a good time watching football. Did everyone have a good time watching football yesterday? If you're into football, it was some good. Yeah, listen here, Raider fan. My point is, you got to put it in your calendar. And these are the kind of reminders that you get. So make sure you're doing that. Make it a recurring event. So every Monday morning, we're on Momentum Monday. We're going over our goals and actuals and accountability. Because I'll tell you, last week, I was so pumped. I couldn't believe it. My energy was so amazing. It led me through the whole week. Sure, I had some obstacles come up. Sure, I had some things that didn't go quite my way or my seller's way. But I'm so excited. And when you're pumped up and you're excited and you're focused, you can get through any hurdle. It's all about a positive attitude and how you look at it. But if you go in there with that whole, oh man, this is just a terrible day, and next thing you know, things are going to be terrible. I'm not trying to play a motivational guru by any stretch. I'm just sharing some of the things that I'm employing in my business. Things come up, but we need to fight through it and get fired up. The definition of accountability, guys, accountability is not something that is given or assigned to a person. Instead, it's something you must take on yourself. My biggest thing is be accountable. If it's to somebody that your spouse, your better half, your friends, your family, people that know, love, and trust you, what accountability do you have in place? And I think it starts with making commitments to calls like this, making commitment to your team, making commitment to the people that know, love, and trust you, that are backing you and supporting you. Make the commitment to be accountable. So what I want to go over today is just a bunch of stuff we've gone over in the past, but an accumulation of it, because we want to record this. We want to be able to reach back and look at this every time we get. I'm going to go ahead and let people in the meantime. But at the end of the day, we want to look at the targets that we're prospecting, because real estate is a contact sport. Tell me I'm wrong. Put in the chat box. If I'm incorrect with that, put in the chat box. Say, no, you're wrong, Robert. Real estate is not a contact sport. It absolutely is. And the more contacts we make, the better we are in our business. Now, I personally recommend making seller contacts. I think taking listings is the best, most important way to grow your real estate business. We've talked about this many times. You turn one listing into 5 transactions, whether it be buyers, other sellers, investors. Turn that one listing into 5 transactions. We've said this multiple times, but you got to make the contacts. The biggest thing is you got to track and measure those contacts, because the last thing you want to do is call a bunch of wrong people and then you get down because you're not having success. We had to call the lowest hanging fruit on that seller tree. A good example. Here's some of the listing targets. FSBOs. Those guys are begging us to call them. They've got their hands up saying, hey, look at me. I need some real estate assistance. Most of them are willing to pay a buyer finder fee should you bring them an offer at a price was acceptable. Expireds already made the commitment. Most of them a 6-month commitment to list. It didn't work out their way, usually because price. But if you reach out to the expireds and find the motivated sellers, the sellers that still want to sell, that's the lowest hanging fruit on the seller tree. FSBOs, expires, of course, canceled goes inside the expireds box. But our personal database, likely to move, investors. You get an investor, they can buy multiple transactions. They can provide multiple purchases and sales, multiple per year. Builders, you can see a lot of builders are putting out some extra special marketing saying, hey, come buy a new build from us. We'll pay your closing cost. We'll buy your rate down. Reach out to them and start helping them co-market their properties. I've talked about REO many times. REO is upon us. It is coming. I hear nothing but 25 listings here, 30 listings there, 60 listings here. They're coming. They may not be in your market yet, but rest assured, if you're positioned and ready to go, the REO space will be a fruitful one. Now, let me make it very clear. I don't want anyone losing their home. However, I don't have a lot of say in that. What I do have a say in is reaching out to the notice of defaults and the notice of trustee sales. They need our help. Let's get them pre-foreclosure. But if it goes back to the bank, we want to make sure we're a resource for that corporate seller as well. So notice of defaults and notice of trustees are big, big, big number of those coming up. I know in my market. Okay. And I know I've been tracking them nationwide, and they're growing in every market that I've done research in. The top markets in the country, the REO market is upon us. That wave is coming. Are you prepared? People are dying every day. I hate to say it's not trying to be morbid, but it's the facts. Probate is a big, big market. Are you reaching out to the attorneys? Do you have a message for those attorneys? Divorce, don't want it on anyone. Sometimes you almost pray for a divorce when you see something. But my point is, those happen. Reach out to the attorneys, be a resource for them. Probate, divorce. These are the targets. Now, I'm not saying this is the only seller you should go after, but don't you think we should go after the sellers that need us the most? They need us now versus later. You notice farming's not in here, your market farming. I'm not saying don't do it, but let's target and market the most important, the lowest hanging fruit on the seller tree. But we have to track and measure our numbers, guys. And this is our goals and actuals class, and that's what we want to go over. We want to go over our goals. What do we want to do this year? That's why I'm saying put it in the chat box. How many transactions are you going to close this year, 2024? How many? Divide that by 12. If it's 24, that's 2 a month. Had to eat an elephant, guys, one bite at a time. It's a half a transaction a week. What are you doing to make sure that that happens? Are you making the contacts? Do you know where to track and measure your numbers and where you need work, where you need help? Number of days work goal 6. If you have a lofty goal and you plan on working 1 day a week, those numbers may not work out. They got to be relevant to your number. They got to be congruent with your number. It takes work, but we want to fine tune what it is we're doing. Total days work 6. Total hours of prospecting. How many hours of prospecting do you have on your calendar? It's an appointment on your calendar. How many do you have? Are you making those hours of prospecting? Again, you spread it out over 6 days. It's not that daunting of a task. But if you wait till Friday and say, oh, I didn't do any prospecting today, then it's a little bit bigger number. But if you one bite at a time, couple hours this day, 2 hours this day, 2 hours this day, and next thing you know, you have your goal. But are you tracking and measuring that? The week gets away from us. How many listing presentations are you doing? You've just reached 20 goals. You've just reached your 20 goals. How many listing presentations are you going on from your efforts? For example, if you make 20 listings or leads generated 20 and you have no listing presentations, we might need help with our presentation when we're talking to those contacts. If you have 4 listing presentations and you're not taking any listings, we need work on our listing actual presentation. Whether it be Zoom, like what I do for the last 2.5 years, I've done all of my listings via Zoom. Are you taking the listings? If you're in front of these people, but you're not closing them, let's work on that. But if we're not tracking and measuring our numbers, we don't know where we need the work. You took 3 listings, right? Let's say of those 4, you took 3, but you've closed 0. Well, you're taking listings, but they're not closing. We need work on that. Maybe you're pricing it incorrectly. Maybe your marketing strategy is off. We don't know unless we track and measure so we can go back and tweak it. Like when you take your car to the shop, it's making this weird noise. Well, tell me more about the noise. Then you do a diagnostic check and you know exactly where that is. So you can go right to the problem, get it fixed, and you're back on the road. Same thing here. I would much rather, after 7 days of prospecting, be able to go back and say what worked, what didn't, and do that every single week. Instead of like most of us, we wait until the end of the year, look back at what worked and go, that didn't work, that worked. It's too late. We've already created much bad habits. We need to tweak it on a weekly basis. And that's WEEK, guys. Okay. Some of you might get that weak, WEAK. We don't want that. Buyer controlled sales. I personally do not work with buyers. I refer buyers out to my buyer team. I want 2 of those a week. That's my goal. I still want to be compensated. I refer buyers out for a referral fee, which we all on this call should be doing. If you're not working the buyer, refer the buyer out, but don't just not take buyers. Because a lot of people think, well, Robert, you don't work with buyers. That's correct. I talk to buyers all the time and I get them and I refer them to my buyer team and to my lender team. I get compensated for those efforts. Make no bones about it. That is a fantastic method. And we all have access to that, especially a lot of us on this call have global real estate ties. We're global. We can refer anyone anywhere in the world. Are we conveying that message to our database? Do people think, oh, you just work in a certain small market? I can't tell you how many times before I started thinking globally, I would get people calling me up, hey, I just sold my house in LA. Wait a second. I could have referred you to an amazing agent up there and received a referral fee, but instead they didn't know. It's my job to make sure that everybody knows across the globe that I'm a global real estate provider. We have global real estate services. Put it in your email signature. Let people know you are global. One phone call, anything regarding real estate needs to go to you. And then you refer that out to the people that best serve you. But are we tracking and measuring that? Buyer controlled sales are important. Price reductions, you're going to start seeing a few more price reductions. But if you do the marketing strategy that we do, our marketing strategy, because it's transparent, the buyers, the market value is shown in live time. So the price reduction should be greatly reduced if you employ the right systems. But if you're not employing the right system and you're pricing it at market, it doesn't sell, you're going to do a price reduction. That's personally a terrible way to market a home, by the way, starting high and price reduction down until where it'll probably sell eventually. That's a horrible, horrible way to do business. But sometimes that's what people know. So there's going to be price reductions. Are you doing open houses? Are you doing open houses, whether it's your listing, one of your company listings, or somebody you know in the industry? If it's in your market, you should be doing open houses every weekend. every single Saturday at least, because all the efforts that we do leading up to that open house is where the gold is. The prospecting, whether it be phones, text, email, our social media, our database, the doors in the neighborhood, letting people know, hey, there's an open house at 123 Main Street this weekend, 1 to 4. Who do you know looking to move into the area? By the way, when do you plan on selling your home? Boom, I just got some buyer leads. I just got a potential seller, and I'm driving them to my open house. Your signs are out, your marketing is out, you're inviting the world. What are you doing? And guess what? By the way, the open house, how much does it cost? Zilch. Doesn't cost you a dime. You throw it on social media. You don't have to boost ads. You don't have to do any of that. Just put it out there and drive traffic, drive conversations. Then you're building up your CRM. And if you're not using KV Core for your CRM, I think you're missing out. KV Core is, and I just for all transparency reasons, I use probably 10, 15% of my KV Core. There's so much more that can be done. I'm working on it too. So make sure you go and see Coach James on Tuesdays and get plugged into KV Core. KV Core is dynamite, but are you keeping track of it? Popeyes, are you reaching out to folks in your neighborhood? Are you stopping by? Are you saying hi? Are you reaching out at least to at least 5 of your past clients? 5 clients that you've worked with before. Make sure they're still raving fans, because most of them have forgotten all about us. If we don't stay relevant, I'm not saying call them every day. Do you want to buy or sell? That gets nauseating. They delete you off Facebook. They remove your number from their phone. They block your number. Do you have something relevant? I'm going to share some stuff of relevance that Carla does for the team, and she'll certainly do that for you guys. Are you growing your organization? I don't care what company you're with, but are you calling and growing your organization? Are you getting other referral partners across the country? Are you getting buyer agents that you can refer business to? Are you growing your organization? I'm telling you, that's a big deal. Put that number down. How many agents do you want in your organization by the end of this year? What are you doing to make that happen? Remember, how to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. I want 24 new frontline qualifiers in my organization. Well, it's not going to happen all overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take lots of time. Okay. People will just go, oh my God, I saw what you did today. I'm ready to make things happen later on. It's not how it works. You got to drip on them. You got to stay sticky with them. Okay. Circle of influence. Are we making sure we're following up with our database? Reach out to your sellers, people that you've helped buy homes with. Reach out to them and say, listen, just wanted to follow up with you. As you know, the market's increasing. Look at your home's value now. Oh, I'm not selling. Didn't say you were. I'm just letting you know what your asset that we helped you during that transaction, now it's worth X. I can tell you, if you reached out to your whole database and reached out to those buyers that purchased from you and tell them what their home is worth in today's market, they're going to be floored. And I'm not saying that they can rush out and they're going to sell, but I had a seller not too long ago tell me, I didn't realize I had that much equity. I'm going to do an equity line of credit and go buy an apartment building. I know a guy that can help you with that. Does that make sense? You need to shake the trees, have the conversation. Had another seller just recently told him what his home was worth. He sent me one of his employees, and I'm selling their house. We're actually under contract as we speak. But it takes time. You got to shake those trees. But the only way to do it is by tracking and measuring your numbers. Again, how many days work? How many total hours of prospecting? What's your contact goal? Leads generated, listing presentations to listings taken, listings sold, buyer controlled sales, price reductions. If you're doing a system that you're pricing it and you pricing it down, I recommend against that. Open houses, guys, the biggest takeaway right here for me is the open houses. Doesn't have to be your listing, doesn't have to be your company, doesn't just go out and do listings. Promote properties in your backyard. Walk the neighborhood and tell everybody about this amazing listing that's in your neighborhood. And let's put your sign next time in the neighborhood. I can tell you, when you drive out your driveway and you roll down the street and you see a sign from another company, I know about I know about that. And that's only on me. It's my job to make sure that they know what I do for a living. Can't be mad at them. Let's put listing signs in your neighborhood. Are we doing the things that it takes? So my point is goals and actuals, track and measure your numbers. These are the things that we need to track and measure. And I encourage you, even if you need to print this out, have a nice form piece of paper and do little hash marks so you can keep track. What you don't want to do is probably go back at the end of the week and go, now let me see, I work 5 days. No, track and measure it on a daily basis. Be true, run true numbers so you know where you need help. So you can track and measure. I'm going to make a 20 hours of calls or text or messengers or reaching out to customers, making contacts. I'm going to get 20 leads that are going to result in this much business. And then you can take that to the bank. If I make 100 contacts and I get 20 leads, I'm going to get 4 listings, and you can count on that every single week. But you have to track and measure every single week. Does that make sense? So I wanted to share that with you. I think it's important that we find the systems and the tools and implement them. There's nothing worse than putting together your business plan and letting it sit over there collecting dust. You need to be in it all the time, reminded of all the time I spent to put my business plan together. Am I following it? A lot of you know that Carla and I are traveling the country in our RV. I don't just start the motor up and go. I plan it out. Got to bring the slides in, got to lower up, raise the jacks, got to make sure we're unplugged. Can you imagine if I just started it up and took off? I'd rip off the side of the motorhome. Can you imagine if I said, yeah, we're going to Arizona and I didn't have a map or a plan to get there? I'll probably end up in Montana. My point is, we got to plan and implement. What's our strategy? What is our strategy to get to where we want to go? Like I said earlier in the call, do we have the number that we want to succeed at this year? How many transactions do we want to do? How many buyers and sellers do we want to work with? Do we have a strategy in which to get there? Okay, first of all, do we have the goal? If 24 is your transactional number, buy the t-shirt, get it on your hat, get it everywhere, focus on that number. But here's one thing you need to do, in my opinion. Once you start getting close to that number in a lot of time, don't let off the gas. Change that number to a bigger number. Don't be afraid to change that to a bigger number. But you got to track and measure your numbers to make sure you're heading in the right direction on a weekly basis. Does that make sense? What's our mission? Why do we get up in the morning? Do you know what it is? Can you recite it if somebody asked you? Right? My mission is to help 24 families this year buy, sell, or invest in real estate. That's right. That's why I have the number 24 on my shirt. People are going to start asking, and that serves as constant reminders. But you got to have the vision to get it done. And I'm not using this as a preaching call by any stretch. I'm just super fired up about sharing this stuff. I need constant reminders as well. I need to make sure I'm following my numbers, my plan. I'm making sure that I'm unhooked before I leave the site. That could be a bit detrimental. Same thing with our business. We make sure we're making sure we're heading forward and making the steps that we need to take. So I wanted to share that. Goals and actuals are key. Track and measure your numbers, guys. I really do believe your business will change forever once you track and measure your goals. There's just no way about it. Make sure we're contacting the right ones. There's nothing can cause burnout with too many no's. There's a lot of no's out there. We got to sort through them. You have a high probability of yeses when you target these folks right here. Does that make sense? So my point is, I just think it's important that we stay focused, stay fired up, stay accountable. We got to make sure that we're staying accountable. And that's why I sent this email to everybody last week. I know it's a big ass email, and it serves as more of a reference guide. She can go one place and go back to the reference on goals and actuals. She can go back to accountability. I need a plug-in. I go back here. I want this to be a resource for you, not a constant, oh my God, here comes another email from Robert. It's, oh my God, oh, I'm not trying to blow up your inbox. I'm just trying to serve as a reminder. Does that make sense? So with that said, I know we went right into the goals and actuals. We want to keep these calls short, powerful, and ready to rock. I would love to open it up here in a second to everybody. I want to share some things that you're doing, share some things that you need help with. That's where I've turned the recorder off because that's personal and that's not anyone else's business. But before we do, I want to make sure that you know the goals and actuals, the numbers that the way I understand it. If there's some goals and actuals on there that don't quite work for you and you want to tweak it, by all means, do that, please. This is just what works for me. And hopefully I'm sharing what works for me, but it needs to work for you. You've heard me say this before. Not everybody wants to make phone calls. Not everybody's good at it. I think it's necessary, but not everybody answers their phone. Texting is where I get the most success. The most response is from texting, at least initially, to get the conversation started. But we need to make sure we're doing all this. Our messaging is correct. Is our messaging on point? Do we have the scripts? Do we know what we're saying? Do we have the buzzwords that matter? Because your words matter. We've heard that many times. Bob says that all the time. Your words matter. Are we doing the things that we need? Are we using the proper tools to do what we need? Does that make sense? So, anyway, what I want to do is I'm going to open it up here. I want to thank you so much for listening to the goals and actuals and how it could change your life. Just track track and measure your numbers. Know where you need work.